Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, August 26th. We are on the Americas account. We kinda struggled a little bit on the European account, no, the Asian account to do the Tavern Brawl. But yeah, let's reroll, win 2 games with the Priest. Watch and learn, nice. Can we watch and learn right now? Yes, we can. Good. So we'll start with a watch and learn. That'll allow me to burn through the news while we're doing this. It'll take them probably a few minutes. I'd say at least 5 minutes to win or lose here. We have a game on Steam here called Light in the Dark. It looks like it might be an RPG Maker game turned into a escape the room point and click game. The graphics are mostly jumping out and just showing you little scenes, and it's mostly dark screenshot syndrome. Even for a horror game, that's not acceptable. So of course this is not quality. $1.99, no discount, English only. Yeah. See nothing there that would make me want to play that game, so it's not going to the follow list. Let's see. Rocksteady Studios on August 25th said 10 years ago today was the release of Batman Arkham Asylum. There's several Unity fan projects going on to release The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on Unity, release the Arkham Asylum game on Unity. He has no duplicates, interesting. And release, I believe, Dino Crisis on Unity. All of which are fan projects, all of which could easily be DMCA'd as soon as they're like close to being finished, which is seemingly the process that most video game companies adhere to. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if at a certain point companies like Nintendo and I guess Warner Brothers for Arkham Asylum, I wouldn't be surprised if they started having a Skunkworks team inside their company that just pretended to be an independent team developing and getting perhaps open source support to port the game to Unity. So you just give basically an intern or some low-level programmer who you don't have any other work to give the assignment to see if you can build up interest in a Unity re-release of the game, and you can start developing it, and then at the halfway point of being finished, or you pretend like you're halfway finished when you're actually very close to being finished, you get a DMCA that nobody ever actually sees the paperwork for, and then a couple years later they actually release it as a product. Although the years part of that idea would probably be too long-term thinking for any kind of video game company. It would have to be a DMCA, a fake DMCA was issued, or claimed to be issued, and then Rocksteady Studios said, actually we had to put out this DMCA because we've got this game and it's out now and it's way better. And particularly if they say, actually we're gonna hire this person to come work for us when they were secretly working for Warner Brothers the whole time. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that has already happened, and if I was running a video game company and I had enough money for that, I wouldn't be upset about doing that myself and making it just a viral marketing campaign. Talking about Arkham Asylum 10 years later, well, Torchlight is a 10-year-old game and I'm covering it right now, so I could see going back. I think I do own Arkham Asylum. I could see going back and playing it, but the problem with Arkham Asylum in particular is it's such a mess of a series that there's really not a good, smooth experience to have there, because after you play Arkham Asylum, you probably would want to play Arkham City, and then you probably would want to play the third game in the Arkham series that was made by Rocksteady, and maybe at some point you would want to play the third game chronologically that wasn't made by Rocksteady. And Arkham Asylum itself had a terrible fight mechanic in it. I really hated its combo fight mechanic, and so if there was a 10-year anniversary re-release of the game, I'd like to see the fight mechanic completely redone or removed and just be able to play the story, and that's about it. Arkham Asylum, it's also easy to forget, was a Metroidvania game where you're going around different areas and getting different abilities to access different areas, and that feels weird a little bit for a Batman game, and it did drag out the game. Whereas really the part that people remember about Arkham Asylum is the story, and they just want to see the story. So a full-on remake of the game would do rather well for the entire series. Is get rid of the Metroidvania stuff, because that's just going to make the game longer for no reason. Right, so now we just need to destroy minions and win a Rogue or Warrior game, which I don't particularly trust the Warrior deck, so let's try it though. We'll try one game with Warrior, and then I'm gonna move on to Rogue, and we are in a position where I potentially could run out of news a lot faster than I think I'm gonna run out of news. LibRetro put out its new a slightly related to its newest version release, the Amiga emulator PUAE and the Commodore 64 emulator VICE got some major core improvements. Now here's a whole list they have of things they've improved. That being said, I don't know how many people really want to play an Amiga or Commodore 64 games. Those are really old games that were not quality, at least in my mind. Perhaps I just recently found out apparently I'm a millennial. I just barely made it from apparently. That's not what I would have ever described myself as, but I would have definitely used a different phrase. But yeah, perhaps I'm too much of an NES fanboy to recognize that there actually are some games from the Amiga emulator Commodore 64 era worth playing. I think historically Prince of Persia maybe, and Pitfall maybe the E.T. game, but that's kinda it. There's not really a long list of games I think need to be played. So remember, I'm playing cards again. Moving on, Gematsu has an article for the PS4 and Switch. This week's Japanese game releases: Astral Chain and the Azure Lane Crosswave, and more. So here's Astral Chain for the Switch. Here's Azure Lane Crosswave. Let's see, some other games. Let's see, haven't heard of this one. Azure Lane, I'm pretty sure is the boat game, but maybe not.
What now?
Doesn't look like a boat game. Deader School, Friday the 13th, the game, Ultimate Edition. What would I need to do? Yeah, just play this, I guess. A game called Omega Vampire, Immortal Unchained, Kanagi no Mori, Satsukami Tsuzuri for the PS Vita. Yeah, let me just show that name. Here's that name. I have no idea what that is. It's probably a visual novel. Then there's a bunch of digital only games. Control apparently came to PC worldwide, but no physical edition. I'm not sure if Control has a physical edition. Almost certainly it would have a physical edition for the PlayStation. I mean, it kind of has to. This was one of those articles, though, that actually means nothing to me, and had I curated it, I should have curated this article out, because, yeah, games getting released in Japan doesn't really have any actionable information to me as somebody who does not live in Japan, or in any way as someone who doesn't import games from Japan. Let's see, TechRaptor has an article here. Port Royale 4 sets sail for Q3 2020. This is an announcement for a game. I guess I kind of want to look at this announcement trailer and see what... I think I've already looked at this trailer. I'm pretty sure Port Royale looks very much nothing like this, and is actually just a city simulator game. Yeah. Let's see, it's coming out Q3 2020 for PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. So it's an announcement of a game coming out quite a while away.
Let the pain speak to me.
And this.
Bring the pain.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters, so almost certainly this is a Chinese visual novel or a Japanese only visual novel. It's tagged a visual novel, so apparently it's also tagged esports. It's not tagged any nudity or sexual content. The fact that there's a character that seems to be a main focus, that seems to be in, and characters seem to be in every picture, seems like this feels like it might just be a low quality indie Japanese visual novel versus a Chinese one. It's discounted to $2.69, which is really cheap. It's actually Chinese. Alright, well then what that tells me is we're starting to see better quality Chinese visual novels. Now I can say that these characters are drawn pretty similarly in the hairstyle department, and they're all covering up a lot of their foreheads, and they feel like they're slightly different characters, like this might have been copy and pasted characters from some other artwork. Like, it doesn't feel like it's all from the same artist and the same universe, and then they stand out from the background quite a bit, so it still is in the realm of being low quality, I would say, versus what we normally see.
From nothing.
But since it doesn't have English support, it can't go on the follow list. But yeah, better quality Chinese games are appreciated. And I guess that's kind of what we want in general, is like, as much as I've ragged on the massive influx of terrible Chinese games to Steam, ahead of Steam being launched in China as its own separate platform, I don't really want like a build the wall xenophobic approach to it where I'm saying I want all Chinese games regardless of quality taken off the worldwide Steam marketplace, which we may see some of that like voluntarily done. We might see a lot of laws in place, laws implemented saying Chinese companies can't be on the global Steam marketplace, or just them voluntarily taking their games off the Steam marketplace, main marketplace, and moving to the special censored Steam marketplace for China. But that's not really what I want. If Chinese developers, if there's a handful of them that can get good at making games, they have a lot of catch up to do, certainly. But it's not, in my opinion, it's not missing in their character and ability to learn how to be good game developers and make good quality products. Even though Chinese games right now have a bad reputation, I don't think it's past their ability to fix that reputation and put out some good games. And that, if they were contributing to the video game world in general with good quality products, why would I be upset with that? So I don't want to see Chinese developers leave Steam. I feel like I should make that clear. I just want bad game developers to either take their bad games off of Steam and learn how to make good games, or give up on making games in general worldwide. And while I particularly wouldn't care if bad game developers all went to something like the Epic Store, that's really not good for the video game community in general, so I still really wouldn't be for that idea either.
Justice is mine.
Moving on, I can see the end of the tunnel, by the way, with the news. TechRaptor has We the Revolution update, adds a special arena mode. We the Revolution came and went. Feels like maybe they're paying for a little bit more coverage. Adding an arena mode, I don't think fixes the main issues with We the Revolution. You can see that recently it's been mixed, whereas it's mostly positive anyway, in general. The main problem with We the Revolution is it's a story-driven game that is more kind of like a telltale point-and-click game than what I think people were expecting. $19.99. I suppose it's on my wish list because it was mostly positive before. I guess the arena mode probably doesn't add too much to it or add anything positive. Let's see, add this.
Job's done.
And then in the chat. There's a negative review here. As others have noted, the writing lacks polish and at times sounds as if it was translated into English. Although the developers released an update the day after the release fixing some of these problems, the launch version contained many typos and grammatical errors. This is an especially glaring problem for a text-driven game such as this. The main problem, however, is the I can't remember. Gosh, man, I gotta zoom in every time now. Every time. Main problem is the crux of the gameplay. Acting as a judge on the Revolutionary Tribunal is neither as fun or as interesting as it could be. I was expecting you would have physical documents to analyze and the ability to call witnesses with branching lines of inquiry where going down the path might open the way to new questions or foreclose others. Instead, you get questions by playing mini games that involve matching a topic to a category, such as an accusation, chain of events, victim, etc. Questions do not flow logically, so on and so on and so on. So, yeah, it seems like We the Revolution lacks polish. Let me look at the price. Am I willing to play something that was Metacritic 77%, $19.99? So on my wish list, I kind of feel like I should take it off, but then also I feel like it's so rare that you get to play a game where you are we need to destroy more minions or win a rogue game, whichever happens first. Alright, so I'm just gonna play casual. Yeah, it's so rare that you get to play a game set in the French Revolution that it would be weird to take this off, even if it is bad. So I'm gonna leave it on the wish list, but just barely. It is something I think I would have to think quite a bit about before I actually click that purchase button. And it adding an arena mode maybe would fix some of that, but I bet it doesn't fix the main issues. Sounds like they spent their time on the wrong thing. Next we have a game on Steam called O-Ray, which is showing me a very weird looking connection of images and such, and I don't know if this is supposed to be a crazy game or what. Like a horror game. The screenshots are from the trailer. The trailer is weird. This is free to play. It's English and Portuguese Brazil. So to coin a new phrase here, this looks like a Brazilian troll game, and it is becoming more prevalent in my mind, and perhaps I've just had a blind spot up until this point, that Brazilian games in particular are getting trollishly upvoted and highlighted on Steam, and perhaps all over the place on the internet, when they really don't deserve as much of a highlight as they're getting. So yeah, that definitely is not a game making it to the fall list. Next, TechRaptor has a article here reviewing Life is Strange Waves Part 4 Issue 8 impressions. So this is the comic book that has been slowly released, telling the Life is Strange story, I think, of the main characters in Life is Strange 1 and Life is Strange Before the Storm, not the characters particularly included in Life is Strange 2. And it's worth mentioning, and this is the main thing about the video games in particular, if I'm going to become a comic book critic, I'm going to say, well, this art looks like it is drawn pretty hastily, and this dress, for instance, is drawn horribly, anatomically incorrect, and so this head is also way too small for the shoulders and the chest there. This does not look like it's a particularly good animator, and I couldn't even, without reading it, tell you about this writing, but I imagine the writing is pretty bad. And you probably know something's wrong when you have a CG animation on the cover. But the main thing to mention here is Life is Strange 2 is still coming out, and nobody's talking about it. It's not good, and this is inherently the danger of being an episodic release, is that you're not going to to get somebody to hype up every single new release of the game. It will be very questionable whether anybody would even want to buy a definitive edition of Life is Strange Season 2. They collected all of the episodes together. Frankly, I think what they did is they probably worked themselves into the trilogy failure scenario early by releasing Before the Storm, and their best maneuver now would be to let's see, next spell you cast costs 2 less. Well, that wouldn't work even if this was what I was trying to do. Their best bet right now would be to put a definitive edition of Life is Strange together and completely just abandon it, have a new game in development to replace it, and call it a spiritual successor to Life is Strange. I think that's how that is best suited as a replacement.
Justice is mine.
TechRaptor is again promoting another Nutaku game. Fight climate change in Merge Nymphs, now on Nutaku. So it's a adult game that apparently is about fighting climate change. I don't know why you have to put a climate change agenda around a game where you are clearly just going to be doing the same things over and over again, playing some terrible gameplay mechanic so that you can possibly see some boobs. Actually, this worked really nicely. Do this and this. That brings this guy back to the hand. You can Leroy Jenkins multiple times that way. Let's see. 2 hours ago, Twitch support tweeted out, "We've recovered from the bit situation. Thanks for your patience." 3 hours ago, we were investigating the issue preventing users from sharing and purchasing bits. Hang tight. This was the first tweet they've put out since August 20th, and today is the 26th. So, one, you have Twitch support going radio silent for nearly 7 days, 6 days. And then the first thing that they come out and say is, we have a problem. We really haven't identified the problem. And then an hour later, we've identified the problem. The thing I would do if I was Twitch support is I would put out, at the very least, some redundant, repetitive help support tweets once every couple of days. Something that said along the lines of, if you're having trouble logging into your account, here's the procedure. Put that out in. Here's the procedure to recover your password. Like, put that in a tweet once a week. Almost certainly, you're getting hundreds of people tweeting Twitch support for that information, and it will at least make your account look active when you have nothing bigger to say. You would want to try and sugarcoat every tweet and push any announcements of new features and such. And yeah, I get that a support Twitter account probably is mostly there for people to complain about it and for them to announce when they're down. But there's some branding there, there's some advertising there that clearly needs to be done and isn't being done. That makes it, me as a YouTuber who's watching it, seem every time I see Twitch not succeeding at running their own business, it makes them feel unprofessional, which is the theme that gets said quite a lot, is that they are just unprofessional and not running their business well. Alright, so I think I can mostly only play Shaman cards unless I jump into the Tavern Brawl and do that, because I'm almost certainly never gonna be able to play six weapons, but I can't re-roll any of those, so then I'd have to play off screen. So actually, I guess my decision is made for me. While I normally wouldn't be playing the Tavern Brawl, I'm gonna have to play the Tavern Brawl. So let's go over here, copy the Murloc Shaman deck, which isn't full of Shaman cards. And we've already won once on this, so I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. This works fine because we haven't rolled over until next stream, which would be Wednesday.
Brawl versus Gul'dan.
Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. An emulator aims to keep Flash games alive. Why? Question mark. And is kicking after official support. No, they're trying to keep games alive and kicking after official support ends. So there's an open source emulator called Ruffle that allows Flash games on platforms like Newgrounds to remain playable after Adobe and web browsers officially in support for the Flash in 2020. Why is the question again that must be asked. Like, I get it that there's probably a handful of Flash games that are worth still playing, but unless you're just trying to get preservation, and if you were trying to do preservation, nothing's really going to stop you from having a computer that's not connected to the internet, that has Windows 95 installed and Adobe Flash installed, and let you play that game over and over again. Nothing stops a preservation effort like that in my mind. Maybe there's some reason why it's not that simple. But for a normal person who is connected to the internet and is exposed to the many security holes that Flash introduced, I don't see a reason why you try to use Ruffle. That being said, almost certainly in a couple of years we will see if Ruffle gets popular and people actually support it. I wouldn't be surprised if RetroPie and Lube Retro built a core around it and backported it into their lineup of other emulators. But yeah, much like the Amiga and Commodore 64 lineup of games, the Flash lineup of games are pretty limited. The original Binding of Isaac, I believe, was a Flash game. I'm not sure that would really be affected though, because I think the original Binding of Isaac game also had its own launcher, and so if you have your own launcher that is using the Flash part of that, then you're still pretty much immune from the end of life of Flash. So we're playing weapons, and we will be playing Shaman cards, and we'll be working towards Tavern Balls. We might get all three of these daily quests done. Gamma Sutra has an article. The first International Gaming Summit on Mental Health is set for October. This is really one of those situations where I don't think this really needs to happen. You're giving credibility, like when you have an International Gaming Summit on mental health, you're giving credibility to the people who frankly should not be allowed in the conversation at all, and you're as much as I hate the idea of deplatforming people, I guess I kind of also hate the idea of giving platforms to idiots, and that's pretty much what this is going to boil down to. Best case scenario, is that a bunch of real professional mental health psychologists get on stage and say there's little to no effect on mental health for people who play video games over and over again, but there still will definitely be people asking questions and in the audience that will ignore what's being that if it's said, and will still push the narrative that video games are causing violence over and over again. Worst case scenario, they come out and say something completely untrue, like it does affect people's mental health significantly, and it needs to be regulated and banned. So then countries that already were planning on banning video games have more cannon fodder to use to justify the actions they were planning on taking anyways. Like, maybe there could be some presentations about how video games are used to help people who already have mental health problems. That might be interesting, but honestly, I don't see how this isn't gonna turn out to be a terrible thought. Maybe even if it went well the first year, it still could go terrible the second year. It could go terrible 4 years down the line. It could go terrible 10 years down the line. There could be a whole different group of people in charge of it. Meanwhile, if you were going to put out stories that, like, these games are being used to help people with mental health problems, you don't need an international summit on mental health to see that happen.
Total corruption.
And it's another example of, particularly Informa, the parent company of Gamasutra, I think running this and establishing this organization would be my guess, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Well, whether it's Informa or it's somebody else, it's an example of people claiming authority to make them sound like they are well informed and well respected when they really aren't. The International Gaming Summit, as a name, sounds like it's a big deal thing when really it's just a made up convention. And we saw that certainly happen with the Media Matters changing their name to something that sounded a lot more professional. And maybe their old name wasn't Media Matters either. But there's definitely a Catholic run institution that is against violence in video games that I think went by the name of Media Matters and then changed their name to sound something more scientific than they actually are by far. Let's see. 4 damage.
A new Valore Delana.
I don't cover VentureBeat stories very often, but they did put out an article. RetroArch now uses AI to translate Japanese to English in classic games. So this is the new feature, one of the new features that they have, where you can press a hotkey button and it will use optical character recognition to translate into English. So I don't think it's automated though. I think you have to hit a hotkey button. And see, now they're showing it in Japanese first. I don't know why they're bothering to do that when they so yeah, it pops up a little box and on top of it showing you what it says. OCR recognition of in particular is not going to be particularly fast, to say the least. It's not going to be fast, and it probably is a lot easier to translate Japanese and Asian symbols to English than it is to accurately translate English symbols into Japanese. I don't think I'm gonna win here, but whatever. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Under Stranger Stars, which looks like a fly-around space game. Looks like it might be a little bit of a shooter. The graphics don't look polished enough, unfortunately. It really looks like a 90s game. See, they want $12.99 English only. And they've just got too many strikes already by being a space game and the fact that I don't like space games and by it just not looking visually appealing, so it's not going to make it to the fall list. So we played one weapon, we played 8 shaman cards, so we can pull this off. Even if we don't get 3 Tavern Brawl victories, which I might re-roll that if I can get the other 2 daily quest done. Let's see.
Thrall versus Rexar.
In Exile Entertainment put out a announcement that the Bard's Tale 4 Director's Cut launches for the Microsoft stores, Steam, Good Old Games, Xbox One, PS4, and Game Pass Play Anywhere. So I'm not sure I want to play the Bard's Tale series of games because Bard's Tale series of games are based off of really old dungeon crawler RPG games. Now there's a lot of graphics I'm seeing here, but there's also a lot of menus I'm seeing, so the actual gameplay I think might boil down to, seems like there's some dialogue, but it does look like it's a dungeon crawler. That being said, maybe I should play the Bard's Tale series and compare it to all the Japanese dungeon crawler games out there. That would be a fair comparison, to say the least, but it would also be a weird series to design for because I would be playing the Bard's Tale series not because I really wanted to, and then I would also be playing a bunch of what I already know to be awful Japanese dungeon crawler games. So I don't know what the real reason would be to highlight that style of game, since dungeon crawler games in general tend to be terrible. I'm barely even happy playing Torchlight right now, and Torchlight is a Diablo-esque dungeon crawler compared to so many other dungeon crawlers out there that are just straight dungeon crawlers. And here's a weapon. Attack. And we'll wait to use the weapon. I don't cover Polygon articles, definitely don't. But the ESA retweeted this Polygon article, how a summer camp is bringing young women into the game industry. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's fine to teach and interest people of any creed, makeup, or gender into computer programming. In video game programming in particular, but the industry for video game programming is incredibly small, and there are way too many people who think, too many kids that are getting encouraged and told that they can become programmers than there are going to be positions for it. Unless we just have a generation, we have a generation of just people who are on universal basic income, and they can just make games for free without any consideration whatsoever of making any money from it. And if that's what they want to do, then by all means, well, they can do that. Now I was able to put poison on that because we're playing the special event right now where everything is an amalgamation. So the spark elementals were also being treated as murlocs. This inherently also, this is a hugely biased article that the ESA shouldn't have touched. It goes to show that the ESA has gone the SJW path as much as most game developers have gone the SJW path, where I would have really liked to see them stand above it and just focus on their main thing. ESA's 3 main goals should be running E3 properly and not leaking people's emails and personal information. They failed at that. Their goal should be lobbying the US government so that the censorship is not added. They're somewhat failing at that. And then their third goal should be maintaining and possibly even improving on the ESRB rating system, which the ESRB is a subsidiary of the ESA. They shouldn't be retweeting articles from Polygon. As for this idea of having a summer camp where only young women are allowed in, that's segregation. Segregation isn't good. You're not teaching the boys how to deal with girls. You're not teaching the girls how to deal with boys. And then you end up, when you do things like this, having people enter the workforce and then feeling like they're getting talked over and feeling like they're being ignored. Particularly females have made this complaint. This is part of the pathetic complaints that were made at Riot Games, is that the women were claimed they were being ignored. Meanwhile, the boys were claimed to act. The men in Riot Games were apparently acting like they were boys, so they didn't know how to interact with women either and act appropriately. So, yeah, if you don't learn how to deal with the opposite gender in your youth, it only gets worse later. And I would never give business to a video game company that proudly said, we're an all-female team, we only hire females to make our game. If you're an independent developer who's female, okay, fine, I'll buy your game, sure, generally speaking. But if you're a team, which we saw a story like that, where it's like all of our employees are LGBTQ+, and like, what kind of reverse discrimination, what kind of discrimination did you have in your hiring process that you ended up with that kind of makeup on your team? Because roughly 50% of the population is male, I expect roughly 50% of the makeup of any video game company to be male. That's just what should be expected. And the people arguing against that are making very ridiculous arguments, in my opinion. And I could go into more arguments about how females and women in general are smarter in a lot of ways, and they're too smart to get into the bad career field of making video games, where males are a little bit more desperate and a little bit more crazy when it comes to sticking to projects that should be given up on. So a lot of times women just have better offers out there, better job opportunities, better potential there. So that certainly will affect the makeup of any next generation of game developers. Also, is that females might go, oh, I know how to program, but I'm not going to program for a video game company. I'll program for a banking company that will pay me a lot better and treat me a lot better. But yeah, like I said, I don't have a problem with teaching programming to kids. It's as useful as reading old English novels like the Iliad and Odyssey. It's got a lot of secrets here.
Job's done.
Darn it. Oh well. Moving on, Cappy Games is looking for a producer. This is way too small again. Why is everything so small these days? They're looking for a producer if you're interested. I don't know where Cappy Games is located. Let's see. They made a game called Below, Super Time Force, Might and Magic, Calm HD, Critter Crunch. Yeah, doesn't seem like they made anything of true interest, but I do recognize this logo. It's a pretty good logo showing capybaras. Capybaras being a large rodent creature, like imagine a giant nasty rat that looks like it would be furry but and cute, but actually is just a giant rodent you wouldn't want to ever deal with. There's somebody on the chat typing in meow7. Hi. I don't know what meow7 means. Is that a Cappy Games game? But yeah, they have a producer job, so if you're interested in that, if you qualify, I'll shout it out. I don't know why I bothered to shout them out the job listings, but heck, why not? There is, back to the conversation before, there is almost this constant listing of jobs that are higher level for the video game industry with no listing of entry-level jobs. So it seems like what happens is there's a lot of demand that's not getting fulfilled for promotions, and either and that probably comes down to just most video game companies kind of look at their employees as scum and totally replaceable and not good employees. And this is a weird generalization to say, but it's kind of true. So because they don't look favorably on their current employees, they're not willing to ever promote any of their current employees to higher levels. So instead, you get a lot of listings for, we need a senior designer, we need a producer, we need this, we need that, when had you had more entry-level jobs in the first place, and had you had any kind of training programs and management paths for any of the employees. I'm sure a lot of people don't even know what a management path is, but yeah, in theory, there should be some employees that are at entry level, associate level, mid-tier, or senior associate level positions in basically any job that should be getting some training from management, so that at some day they could be qualified and have what they have the knowledge they need to have to then be promoted to a manager. And that just really doesn't happen. What happens in almost every job is you have a senior associate getting forced to do a manager's job without getting a promotion or any training. They're just getting work dumped on them and told to figure it out, which is not really the way that you would want to run a business smoothly or treat your employees. But that's abusing and using your employees is the number one thing you do in the United States, it seems. Let's see. What do I want to do? I think kind of nothing. Just end the turn here. Next, we have a game on Steam called Treater. I thought it said Theater, but it's actually Treater. There's actually quite a lot of polish here. Some decent polish in the background. This looks like this might be an actual first-person horror game of some sort. Kind of like a Dead Space game. So, it even has the back... It really is a Dead Space game, isn't it? It's heavily inspired by it. Alright, this looks like this might be something. I'll put this on the follow list. It's early access right now for $9.34. It is similar to Dead Space according to Steam. It's English with full audio. If this comes out and is an actual finalized product and it actually plays well, I'll be excited. Like I don't see how I couldn't be rather excited by I played that totally wrong. Messed that up. Yep. We have, I would say, about 20 more games to cover, and then we'll be done for the day. And I may end up with having a little bit to do on the European accounts, but a lot less than I thought I would, actually. I thought this was gonna end up taking a lot more time. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Phantom 3D. This is that maze making plugin that somebody released on Unity. We've seen a lot of these low effort asset flip maze games. This game claims that they are handcrafted mazes. I don't care if it's handcrafted or not. This still looks terrible as far as the game. This wouldn't look good as a mobile game. This wouldn't look good on PC. This wouldn't look good in the 90s. This is just terrible looking. It's a bad color palette of dark greenish black and some light green grayish elements.
I wonder.
This is $4.49 discounted, English only. It's not gonna make it to my wish list. There was a game I saw that was on my wish list. It was it looked a lot like an asset flip game. I'm not gonna lie. It totally looked like an asset flip game, but it was a 3D Unity game where you were basically playing Pac-Man, trying to collect gems while running away from these monkeys in hats. And I saw another YouTuber play it, and it kind of is that game still. It kind of is Pac-Man. It's like super hard to get through the first level, but then it seems like you get upgrades after the first run, so might be actual more game there. I just saw them play through the first level though, so there is also a chance that that it falls apart after the first level too. I think I have that on the fall list, having seen a little bit more on it. I think I'd probably consider buying it, even though I know it's going to be an awkward frustration experience. I'll see if I can find the name after we look at this next game. Next game, speaking of games on the fall list, here's Rethink 3. Now this developer every now and then releases a Rethink game. If we look at his store, you have Rethink 3, Rethink Evolved 3, Rethink 2, Rethink Evolved 2, Rethink Evolved, Rethink. I own Rethink 1. I'm going to be willing to test it out, and I might test out Rethink Evolved just to see what the differences are. But he does seem like he's sort of flooding the Steam marketplace with the same game over and over again. It's a Portal-esque game, so maybe he's making somewhat reasonable amounts of changes or increased puzzles, different puzzles here. So it looks very, very pretty, the Rethink series. Of course, this is all probably asset flip Unity stuff, but if you're going to make a laser puzzle Portal-esque game, that's not really a bad thing. Looks like maybe in Rethink 3 he's introduced a new prism style cube that splits things. So yeah, I guess at this point, wish fall list. Let's put it on the fall list and see if we can get some reviews. Yeah, I guess that's the right move, because I don't feel like I need to go over and over again. What's this game? Interesting.
There is little time.
Well, I was typing in Dark for a game called Dark Devotion, and I landed on the Dark Crystals Ages of Resistance Tactics, which is coming out in 2019. They have that new Dark Crystal Netflix anime. So, it's not an anime. I don't know why I called it an anime. This might have been a tie-in game, but it's not out in time. I really don't know a lot about the Dark Crystal movie at all, either. But this looks like something that might be a tie-in for that. It even says Netflix on it. So this game did not come out in time, thus they didn't mention it. Okay. I'm fairly certain the Dark Crystal show, puppeteering show, is out. But I was trying to find Dark Devotion. Dark Deception. That's it. Not Devotion, Deception. Alright, yeah. So I need to play like a few more Shaman cards or win one more victory. So here's the game Dark Deception. You have this white-haired lady who's having you run through these areas collecting purple gems like Pac-Man and avoiding these crazy monkey characters. I think when you get to other levels there's more jump scare characters, and it seems like there's traps and some other things as you get to more levels. Yeah, when I last looked at this, the trailer had none of this elements, none of this content. So it seems like we can see it's very positive. most recently and recently. People really like the Pac-Man / jump scare combination. I think it works better than what you probably would experience when you're just doing something like Five Nights at Freddy's, which would be, I think, a fair comparison to these styles of games. This very much might be a streamer game designed to be played over and over again. But then you also see the pricing is extremely fair here, in my opinion, because you can play it for absolutely free, Chapter 1. See if you get a liking of it, and I may very well just play Chapter 1 and see if I get a liking of it, if I can actually play it. And then if I like it, get the entire chapter. Difficulty updates have been happening. It's 28 achievements, so it's not like an achievement game. There's, I believe, a button on the keyboard you can press to turn around and do a 180 that also would help your help the development. Oh, I did that so wrong. I forgot. I should have played this first, and then that would have worked so much better. So yeah, Dark Deception, I just want to give it a shout out. It seems like it's improving. Speaking of improving, when you get, like, when the game started, a lot of these screenshots weren't even here, but all you were seeing was that lady that didn't seem like she really matched. But I wanted it. When you beat a level, you end up in this level select area, and this fountain lets you gain abilities and speed up. And she still does definitely feel like an out of place witch. There's also an eyeball on the wall telling you not to listen to her and not to help her. I kind of wish I had something more than a wish list, but I don't, so... So there's not like a super wish list to put this on. I could put it on a following list, I suppose, but that wouldn't really help any. Of course, Dark Deception does run into the problems. If you don't want jump scares, if you don't want a horror game, you're not going to play this. And if you don't want something that's particularly difficult, you probably don't want to play this. So I probably would only want to play it on the easiest setting if it has an easiest setting, and I suspect that they don't have an easiest setting. Let's see. School will now be quite a bit harder. So apparently the school part was way too easy by their standards. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it really is a game that lives and dies based on its difficulty, though, because there's really not a lot that you can add to a game like that.
Job's done.
If it's too easy, like if you speed run through it and beat it on the first try in a couple hours, you probably aren't going to want to play it a second time if it's just way too easy. But Dark Deception is working in the opposite direction and seems to be making itself too hard. And unfortunately, that's really an example of a game that right now, in the here and now, I kind of, if I had time, would play. But I don't have time. So it becomes whenever I get around to it, and whenever I get around to it might be years down the line, and at that point it may have no relevancy, so there's no reason to really play it. And it just becomes this vicious cycle of there's always too many games to play and never enough time. Hearthstone is a big part of that problem, certainly. We've been going for a couple hours at least now, and yeah, the Hearthstone factor of playing 3 accounts and doing 3 daily quests every day takes time. Even if I was just playing 1 account, it would take time.
Shall we make a storm?
Let's go through this. real reason to kill anything there. Next we have a game on Steam that came out called Strizel, which looks like it's a top-down strategy game of some sort, but it looks overly simplistic both in graphics and gameplay. Looks like there's just a lot of text and a lot of things trying to make it seem like it's doing something, but actual movement or interactivity seems to be extremely limited. $4.99 English only, says it has English full audio. It's just not visually appealing at all. Before I even understand or know what the game is, I'm uninterested in it. Gamatsu has an article here. Conan Chop Chop has been delayed to Q1 2020 to add online multiplayer. It's no longer due out on September 30th. Conan Chop Chop apparently is coming out for PC, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One. This is the Conan, as in Conan the Barbarian game, that is most recently in development, I suppose, but it doesn't really mean too much at all because it seems like they're constantly in development of a new Conan the Barbarian style game, and none of them ever seem to be quite good enough in quality. And Conan Chop Chop doesn't strike me as particularly being the one to break that pattern. Next we have a game on Steam called MMA Executive, which clearly is a low effort troll game from the looks of it. Why you would specifically want to play a strategy simulation game being the executive of an MMA fighter, which I don't know what an executive of an MMA fighter would really do anyways, or an executive of the MMA in general would do, because as far as I know, MMA is 100% real. Like, I don't think anybody is legally throwing matches or deciding the outcome before the fight happens, like in wrestling.
Remember the sun
So I imagine an executive's not really doing a lot. This game looks horrible. Looks completely horrible. They want $22.49 discounted. Says it has English full audio, has 40 Steam achievements. Yeah, this is definitely a low effort game, definitely more of a troll at that price than a real game. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article for the Switch. Obake Doro launches August 29th in the West. What is this game? Do we have a video? I bet this is like a horror game where you're trying to avoid ghosts. Or is this the hide and go seek game? Oh yeah, this is the hide and go seek game where you play as the ghost and you're catching the kids. Or you're playing as the kids. No, you're playing as the kids hiding from the ghost. I'll be interested to see if a Japanese hide and go seek game actually can succeed on the face of it, and people would really want to play that. Because frankly, I wouldn't want to. If somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, let's play hide and go seek," I would laugh in their face as an adult. And if somebody told me there's a digital version of hide and go seek, I'd still laugh in people's faces. Like that's not really what I want to spend my time doing when playing video games. Video games have a little bit more maturity to them than just a simplistic hide and go seek experience. I need to hurry through the news pretty much. TechRaptor has an article here. Sony's Ready Set Heroes is coming to the Epic Store. This might be, almost certainly this is what Sony Entertainment Interactive was talking about when they said they'd potentially let their single party developers sell their games on PC. Is that they'll let them sell them on the Epic Store because it gets them guaranteed income as an exclusive. I don't think it's gonna break down to actual Steam store sales of Sony games. Alright, I have 9. He can do 5. Well, this should win. Yeah. So take that victory. So I played 30 Shaman cards. I won 30 Tavern Brawls. The only thing I didn't do is play one weapon, and we're so close to that anyways that I might as well just get that done. So I'm just gonna play ranked here and play this, and I'm gonna try and burn through the news because this is probably the last game we're gonna play. OpenCritic has Control's reviews. Apparently people are loving it. OpenCritic gives it a mighty rating. The top critic average is 84%, and 90% of critics recommend it. We could scroll down, I think, more, and at some point we'd see the reviews. IGN gives it an 8.8. PC Gamer gives it an 88. Metro Gamer Century. Now, here's the problem with this, if I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench into it, and it's really just a tiny monkey wrench. My concern here is that unless all of these developers, these critics, were given early access to Control, which they definitely were, I know for a fact they were, they wouldn't have been able to play all of the game all the way through to know that it's a great game and that they should be recommending it. So that's one problem. The counterbalance to that problem, and this is where it's a catch-22, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, is if you are given early access to a game like Control, which is a AAA game and is going to get you clicks to your website, you're going to be, in general, nicer about it and nicer about the reviews. Now, I haven't seen a lot of examples of people reviewing a game as an 88 when it was a 7.5, so I think there is probably some legitimacy to say Control is good, which is great because Remedy really needed Control to be good to make up for the fact that some of their previous games haven't been so good. So ideally Control is great, and Remedy is on the path to make more great games. Perhaps one day they could just make a game with a great first-person shooting mechanic and not have it be built around some crazy storyline. But if every game they have has to be around a crazy storyline, that's fine with me too. So yeah, it sounds like Control is good. It's hard to make the statement that it isn't. And I might as well hit that too.
Job's done.
So that's nice. Hopefully Control is the beginning of an improvement for 2019. Otherwise 2019 is going to be a very short list of best games in 2019. And hopefully Control is long enough that it's worth the effort too, because I could imagine that the reviewers played it for 4 or 5 hours, and then it turns out to be a 10-hour game, and then actual people who bought the game are disappointed. So there's still a lot of questions, and this is why I want to wait before making a full decision until I start seeing reviews on Steam to back up what the mainstream video game reviewers are saying. It's nice when everybody's on the same page, but very often it isn't the case. Moving on, OpenCritic also has the reviews for Astral Chain, which apparently is an amazingly good game too, according to OpenCritic, getting the exact same mighty rating, 88% average and 98% recommended. So you have a Platinum Games Japanese Nintendo Switch game which unfortunately I don't think this is coming to PC day one. It might come to PC eventually, but it might be a Switch exclusive, and if that is the case, then I'll never get to play it. There was some drama, I don't think I ever even bothered to mention it, where some people, I think on Reset Era, were complaining that Astro Chain was pro-police propaganda, and just inherently all police everywhere are bad. That's a really stupid message to try and say. Like, police can be good if they do their job right and protect the people and serve the people like they should. Very often in many countries, the police are not always doing the right thing and not doing a good job. There's plenty of dirty cops and bad cops out there. One could point to Hong Kong right now. One could point to the United States at almost any point, or pretty much anywhere around the world. It is also probably going to be a great example where you could find your own balance here and make your own mind up when you start to see just in your daily, if you follow any mainstream video game critics, follow those sites and see how much are they talking about Control, which came out the exact same day as Astral Chain, and how much they're not talking about Astral Chain. Because almost certainly, if you look at it objectively, you will see that there's going to be way less coverage for the Japanese looking game than the Western looking game. And this is a bias that I perceive and see on almost a weekly basis as far as coverage goes. So, to continue on that theme, TechRaptor has a Control review, Controlled Chaos, and we'll skip down to the bottom and see what TechRaptor, which is one of the few sites that I follow that actually reviews games, says. They say a lot. They gave it a 9.0, amazing. Controls combines a fantastically weird setting with a fast-paced combat, awesome exploration, and impressively destructible environments. It's an absolute gem of a game. Just make sure you get it on PC or an upgraded console. Yeah, I have heard that Control runs pretty badly on the basic PS4, according to the Giant Bomb review, which I was just started watching and then turned off the stream. TechRaptor's pros are an interesting story, amazing setting, fun combat, great exploration, destructible environments, superb graphics and audios. Cons can be some boring side quests and performance issues on the base PS4. Yep, so they're saying the same thing that I had heard. Which might really just be that there's a quick patch for the base PS4, but I would definitely say don't buy it day one if you just have a base PS4. TechRaptor also has a game review for Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey review. This game kind of came and went with very little fanfare. You're playing as a monkey, an ape of some kind, probably not actually a monkey, that's an ancestor to humankind, and you're doing several survival style gameplay mechanics to eventually, I guess, survive and have your pack survive. It's a weird game by the looks of it, but it looks also like it might be something worth playing. You can see TechRaptor gave it an 8.5 great. Ancestors is a fantastic translation of evolutionary concepts into a game, so people might have some problems with that. It presents a fully realized world that forces you to pay attention to every last detail if you want to survive. Pros, evolutionary concept works well. slick Spider-Man style movement, real-time crafting mechanic, and just enough tutorial. Cons: managing your clan can be tough, and you can't check needs on the fly. So yeah, I did not see this game on Steam though, so I don't know if this is actually on consoles only. So I'm gonna have to do some research on that. But yeah, this game, Ancestors: The Humankind Odyssey, came out I think yesterday, and it's clearly going to be overshadowed by Control, and perhaps even a little bit by Astral Chain. So just a real bad choice of release dates if they knew those games were coming out at that time. Alright, I'm not going to bother to play anymore, because if I was going to do anything more on Hearthstone, I'd have to jump to a different account, and that's not something I want to do. So let's just go through the news. TechRaptor has an article: Exceed Shovel Knight has been announced for December 2019 release. This is a card game, apparently. Is Exceed always a card game? I don't know what Exceed is. Shovel Knight definitely is putting out as many licensed products as they can get away with. Yeah. Let's see. It's a real world card game. Alright, so this isn't even really video game related, other than Shovel Knight character has been licensed to it. Alright, take that information if you're interested. I am definitely not. Gamma Sutra has an article: Get a Job, Cold Iron Studios is hiring a principal character artist. That's in San Jose, California. If you're interested, you can look up that article. I've talked about it a couple times. LibRetro RetroArch 1.7.8 has been released. You can look up the two main things. There's several other things that certainly that they've also added, but it feels like a couple of major features were added. But again, also if you're playing RetroPie, you probably can't upgrade to the newest version easily. Gamma Sutra has an article: Play Ventures raises $40 million to fuel game-focused venture capital fund. I'm not going to go more into that story because that's just like business stuff. But again, you can check out that article. We have a game here called Tusker's Number Adventures Malware detected in the bracket. This looks like it's more of a joke game than a real game. $4.49, English only. Seems like it's a kid's game that then infects your computer, and then your whole computer gets deleted, or at least that's the story that's being said. I wouldn't mind something like a game sort of like that, and there was a game sort of like this that came out a while ago, but this just visually doesn't look interesting enough to justify that. And yeah, so I'm not gonna put it on the fall list. I can't remember the name of that game. It had like pony in the name or something. Next we have a game called Aftermore. This is a student project because it's from Digipin. Doesn't look terrible, frankly, as a game in general. So I'm gonna put this on the wish list. Is that where I'm putting Digipin free games? I think. Yeah, it's odd that it has a third-party EULA, though. That's the weird part. When it's a free Digipin student project. And like all the student projects, it's probably not great, but it's interesting to look at student projects. Here we have a joke game, possibly a troll game on Steam, called Ginsuke Geikishu Benza Race Toilet Shooting Star, which we've seen some other joke games where it's a racing toilet. $6.99, no discount, English only. Yeah, this feels like this is probably a joke troll game, not really worth playing. It feels like it's designed for streamers to play. It almost certainly is not a good racing game and not worth $7. So I'm not going to put it on the follow list. The danger of putting something like this on the follow list is alright, I'll be generous. I'll put it on the follow list anyways. But the danger certainly is that it gets reviewed highly because people are joking and trolling, and then I accidentally buy something that I don't really want to play. Next we have a game on Steam called My Free Farm. This looks like it's like a mobile game converted to a PC game, or just an oddly resolutioned game. There's bars all around it, and yet looks like it's just a farming low effort game, free to play with in-app purchases, third party EULA. Yeah, nothing here looks like some quality work, so that definitely wouldn't make it. Next we have Solitaire Victorian Picnic, which we pretty much have just sworn off all Solitaire games. They all look the same, they're all made in the same engine. It's basically an RPG Maker style engine for Solitaire games. $2.99 discounted, whole bundle of Solitaire games, a bunch of languages supported. I'm kind of glad we don't have a flood of Solitaire games on Steam. Certainly there could be if people tried to do that, but I doubt Solitaire games sell too well. Next, Game of Switcher has an article, Get a Job. Wizards of the Coast is hiring a lead server software engineer for the arena. That would be Magic the Gathering arena. What's interesting, I think, about this job in particular is I would have thought they already had a lead server software engineer because they're in beta. So that's a little scary. Does that mean they lost their lead server engineer and now they're going to have to start over from scratch a little bit? Or do they just need another one? You can't have two leads, so it would almost certainly mean they lost theirs. This job is in Renton, Washington, which I think is probably somewhat close to Redmond, Washington. Washington State is not that big, so that would be my guess. I may be totally wrong about that. Next we have a game on Steam called Contingency, which seems like it's a fast-paced shooter, but then the trailer seems to also show a bunch of other stuff. It's a little too pixely in the graphics. It's a little too random in the screenshots. It looks like it's all over the place as far as what the gameplay mechanic is supposed to be, which makes me suspect the gameplay is actually pretty bad. This is discounted to $8.99, English with full audio, allegedly. Yep. And it's being compared to like Super Meat Boy and Axiom Verge, which are two games that are rather different. Yeah, I don't see anything here I'd want to play, so Contingency is out. Contingency as a name is a pretty low effort name, too. Gamasutra has a article for smartphones. Fist of the North Star Legends Revive launches September 5th. And that's a smartphone game, according to the tag. And then Gamatsu has an article, Koei Tecmo and Omega Force to announce a new title on August 29th. Wield the power of the gods once more. There's undoubtedly several animes or mangas where you use the phrase wield the power of the gods. They're speculating that it's a Wars Orochi 4 expansion. It could really be anything. This is a Japanese trailer, so I'm gonna skip through it and not show it. Yeah, it looks to me like it probably is a Warriors Warriors expansion, because there are characters that definitely look like they're from the Warriors Orochi series. Here we have a game on Steam called The Castle that looks to me to be almost a complete reskin / stealing of Maniac Mansion, but a spiritual clone of Maniac Mansion is such a weird game in the first place. It's also weird on the trailer because they're calling themselves Ishtar Games, and then they start by having a logo of Ishtar, the ancient Babylonian god / goddess, basically naked in the mural relief. I suppose that's YouTube family friendly because that's history and art, but also it's probably not the best way to make a game logo. So yeah, here's Ishtar. I'm gonna put this on the follow list because it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea to say, hey, I loved Maniac Mansion, let's just make a Maniac Mansion clone. It's a little surprising that more Maniac Mansion clones didn't come out in the day when Maniac Mansion was so big. There were games that were in the same style. There were plenty of Scum VM games that were made, games which Scum stands for Script Creation Utility for Maniac Mansion, but nothing really tried to have the same feeling and story of that until you had the creators of Maniac Mansion make The Day of the Tentacle, which was the theoretical sequel. Next, Gematsu has an article for smartphones. Hunter x Hunter Arena Battle has been announced for smartphones. So Hunter x Hunter, I think, is probably getting close to the point of being as popular as it could be as far as an anime series. I don't know if there's a new season out right now, or if a new season would catch a lot of people's attention. Anime fans, very seasonal, very much moving on to the next thing if you don't keep their attention. Next we have a game on Steam, Drunken Fist, totally accurate beat 'em up game. This looks like a troll game. Yeah. What's odd is it doesn't feel very asset flippy, even knowing that these probably are asset flips. It's discounted to $5.39 English only. This is like a troll game, again, trying to get people to stream it and get people's attention to buy it through streamers. And I don't think that works at all anymore. I think most video game streamers have figured out that doesn't work for their channel, and it doesn't work well for the video game industry in general, or their own entertainment. Next we have a game called Merged, which this is just a space shoot each other player versus player experience. It's multiplayer only, but it's from Digipen, so I am in a weird position there. I guess I'll put it on the wish list, and then since it's free, since it's a student project, but honestly I don't think I could ever cover it because I wouldn't have any multiplayer. So I might be able to launch it out and start a local multiplayer game, and then say, well, I can't really experience this because there's nobody else around to play with me. Or maybe I could jump on multiplayer online and figure out something there. Next we have a game on Steam called Power Punch 2. This is from Pico Interactive. This clearly is a Punch-Out clone. Apparently M. Bison from Street Fighter series was a direct clone of Mike Tyson, but they quickly changed the name of M. Bison to a different character So there's a character that looks like Mike Tyson that was released under a different name, but it was originally called M. Bison in the Japanese version. And this was in part to the fact that Mike Tyson was recently incarcerated. So as for this game, it's a boxing game. I like boxing games. I'm willing to give this one a chance and put it on the following list. But it is also a Pico interactive game, so it's probably there's probably a reason I've never heard of it, and it's probably not that good. $3.99 discounted, English with full audio, it says. Yeah, which, how that could be true is extremely questionable. I'm not even really sure I like boxing games as much as I like Punch-Out and rhythm games in the framework of being a boxing game. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam here called Existence that looks like it is a platforming game where you have to die to then get the ability to transform yourself or get abilities, which, you know, that might fix some of the Super Meat Boy frustration of a game like that. If you died and then all of a sudden things were a lot easier. There was a game that came out about 6 months ago where you would break your body into many different parts, and that allowed you to reach different areas, somewhat similar in concept. But that name was so weird I can't remember it. Existence is $4.49 discounted, English only. I'll put this on the follow list. This might be a game worth playing, or, you know, it might just be kind of nothing. It might be an hour worth of gameplay and a very few puzzles. It really depends on how much work and polish is actually in it. Next we have a game on Steam called Oninaki. This game got a lot of hype from Square Enix, and can I show a Square Enix trailer on Steam? Maybe. But unfortunately, this was already on the following list. Unfortunately, it's not getting reviewed well. It's kind of a top-down fighting game, real-time fighting game, not a turn-based JRPG. Perhaps that caused some of the dislike of it. Maybe Japanese JRPG players really do like the turn-based time JRPG elements. It's $49.99, English only. See if we can find a negative review to tell me what they don't like. Honestly, the demo is the best part of the game. It's all downhill from there. About halfway through, you've basically seen everything there is to see. From that point, the rest of the game is the exact same monsters and increases and losses you've already been fighting with, and bosses you've already been fighting with, palette swaps, and revisiting areas that you've already been to. So it seems like it just has a lot of grinding in it. I guess it makes sense why Oninaki here is not getting didn't get a lot of advertisement. Like it has a lot of polish on it, which may be to their detriment. And this might be another example of just talent being drained out of Square Enix in general. That what seems like a half-finished JRPG would come out of Square Enix, and it not being good quality is crazy, considering Square Enix is a Final Fantasy team, and one would question if Oninaki was supposed to be a Final Fantasy game originally and they weren't even allowed to use that name because it was so bad. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Steambirds Alliance, which is like a bullet hell fly around shooter game that's mostly positive. It's free to play with in-app purchases and a third-party account, and a third-party EULA. I feel like there's another game in the Steambird series, but it doesn't seem like that is true, so I don't know what I'm thinking of. Steambird, I guess, is half steampunk and anthropomorphized birds. Well, this is a multiplayer game, so seems like people are liking it, but it's not something I would cover. I only have about 4 more articles, and I'm not going to go through the Twitter feed to see if there's any new news. If there is any new news, I'll talk about it on Wednesday. Next, we have a game on Steam called Alchemy Story. What's a little weird here that you would have what it looks like a very cutesy, kid-friendly game here, but then you're going to talk about alchemy, which is basically magic, and so you could see parents having a problem introducing that to kids. Doesn't really seem like this is much of that either. I think that girl's wearing a yellow shirt. Yeah. So this looks so cutesy and kid-friendly. You're in a weird position there with the name. Ignoring the name though, it looks like this might be a really, really good game, like a Stardew Valley-esque game to have kids play. So it's $19.99, English full audio, third-party EULA. I'm going to put it on the fall list to see if it comes out of early access and if it stays positively reviewed, because I wouldn't really be surprised if the reviews start going downhill either after it gets out of early access or after more people play it. Next, we have a game on Steam, Gods of Havoc, Fall to Earth. This looks like an uninteresting tabletop strategy type game, trying to be a digital game. Like every screenshot is boring looking. $7.99, English only. Yeah, just visually unappealing in total. And then our final game for today, we have one called XEYYEX, which looks kind of like a Pac-Man clone, but frankly, I don't know if I'd want to play a Pac-Man clone, and if I was going to play a Pac-Man clone, I don't know why I would want to play something that didn't look way visually better than Pac-Man. Yeah, it feels very old school, feels very much like something that would have come out for the Commodore 64. This game is $3.03 discounted, which is a weird price to discount to. It has one achievement and it's English only. Yep. So nothing there. I clearly curated a little bit, but not a lot, because we still saw quite a few bad games right up to the end. So that puts me on the Humble Bundle. I'm just going to see if there's any new game bundles. I don't believe there actually is. Yeah, there's no new game bundles right now. So we are done with this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.